One of the things I once read in the New York Times that I thought was quite interesting was about where you study. Now, you often get told, get a desk, make sure it's a quiet place, and make that your study place. And actually, while that might be helpful, it's certainly helpful for you to get used to silence, to get used to being in a room where there's no noise whatsoever, because that's what's going to be happening in your exam for 3 hours for most exams. So you're going to need to get used to that. But what this study showed was that people who studied in a variety of places actually retained the information better than people that always studied in the same place. The neuroscientist who was consulted for the study thought it might have had something to do with the differences that your mind is taking in kind of subconsciously as you're studying. The difference in smells or in the air quality and the light means that you retain the information a bit better. So by all means, sit down at the same place and have maybe a main study area, but don't be afraid to go outside, to go for a walk, to maybe put your study notes and read through some of the key passages, chuck them in your headphones and go for a walk and study while you're doing that. Or go out to the garden for a while and have a study and think through stuff there. Because apparently, if these neuroscientists and people that conducted this study that was right, that's going to help you to retain some of that information. And at the very least, it's going to get you outside, give you some fresh air, and allow you to have a bit of a break from being in the same place, which can always be a good thing in my mind. So hopefully that helps when it comes to thinking through your environment. Another thing I encourage students to do when they're studying is to get someone else involved and to actually speak to them about what you're studying about. The reason for this that I give them is that while it might be easy for you in your mind to read the words and to say to yourself, yeah, I understand that concept, or I get why, and I can explain cause and effect of this is why this was caused here, and this is what happened there, and there, or depending on what subject you're doing. When you actually try and verbalize when you actually try and verbalize that though, sometimes you find yourself struggling. It's kind of like when you give someone else your essay to look at as this is the draft, and they keep finding where you've just missed words, or you've got two the's or something like that. And what's happened is in your mind, you've skipped over that because your mind knows it shouldn't be there. Or your mind inserts a word that is not actually there so that it makes sense. So what you're doing when you're verbally explaining something, let's just say, hey mum, here's the causes of World War One, or hey mum, this is why Russia was so important to the Eastern Front when it came to World War Two, or hey mum, this is what I mean by fairness and equity when I'm talking about how effective the legal system is. What you're forcing yourself to do is to explain it, and that's ordering your thoughts in your mind. You're thinking through to yourself while you're explaining it to your mum or your friend or your sister or whoever. Well, how would I actually do this? I should make sure I explain terms A, B, and C, and I should make sure that I emphasize this thing over that thing when I'm talking about it so that they understand. And the other helpful thing is you get instant kind of recognition of whether you're right or not. If you're getting a blank look from your mum and she's like, what on earth are you talking about? You need to go back and think through and be clearer in what you're talking about. So verbalizing is a really helpful way of you making sure you understand a topic. I think it was Einstein that said, if you can't explain something clearly and simply, you don't know it well enough. I'm pretty sure that was a horrific paraphrasing of what I'm sure was a very pithy, profound saying. But the concept remains, and it actually enforces what I'm talking about. To verbalize something forces you to think through what the right words are, what the right way of explaining it to someone is, what to include, what not to include. And it's a really helpful way of you going, do I know this well enough yet? Sure, I could write it down if I'm given enough time, but verbalizing it is another way of helping form in your mind, I know what I'm talking about, I can explain it to someone, and that's going to help you in the long run when you're writing it or when you're including it into maybe a larger concept in an essay, for example.
Now, look, sometimes your mum or dad or friend or sister might not be around. Well, use the wonders of modern technology. Get yourself a map and film on your phone you explaining a concept. Yeah, World War Two. This is how it happened. We had over here is Russia and here's etc., and you go through and you say this is why maybe this is why Southeast Asia was so important, and this is why Battle of Midway was a turning point in the conflict of the Pacific, etc., and you explain yourself in a 2-minute video. You say I'm going to give myself 2 minutes and I'm going to explain this concept. It doesn't have to be on a map. Be on a piece of paper. You could have drawn out a simple question and you're answering that question in verbal form, and you film yourself doing it and say, hey mate, can you have a look at this? Or hey mum, when you get home from work, can you have a look at this? And can you just in 2 sentences say, what I was trying to explain to you? Or did this work, and ask for some feedback. Use technology, let it be your friend. So, verbalize people. Tell people what you're talking about. Put them under sufferance. Say, Mum, you need to listen to this. Groans, etc., etc.